Good morning. Um, I'm finally recording. This is my second, I don't know what they call them now, podcasts um, and I wanted to talk today a little bit about Marilyn Monroe. I recently have had several people cajoling me, pushing me, uh, trying to force me to watch the movie Blonde with Ana de Armas, which is another film that is about or pretends to be about Marilyn, without claiming to be a biography. I haven't seen it. Whenever I'm asked to look at these things, normally I'm not that interested, to be honest, because I it's someone that I knew. It's like when people ask me things about my family and things like that. It's something I knew, but I am aware that I'm one of the few people that's still alive that actually knew her, and so that is something to take into account, uh, which is what I'm trying to do. Uh, I know that I have some kind of legacy to leave, and that I actually have started to write a book, which was tentatively titled Marilyn's Other Family, years ago, which I put away after a while for a variety of reasons, which I don't really want to go into now. Uh, but whenever I hear or see or read anything about Marilyn, and there are quite a few books, respected books by respected writers, um, the thing I'm most struck by is that no one knew her and that they're all talking about a Marilyn that they imagine her to be. And while I can't guarantee that I know the absolute truth about Marilyn, I do know that I knew her. And the thing that struck me most, I met Marilyn. I was, I think, about 14, 15, in quite the midst of a severe adolescent crisis, which actually eventually led to a nervous breakdown on my part. I guess that's something that I have shared with Marilyn, a certain kind of sensitivity, and I don't think I'm a fragile person. And but when I met her, the feeling that I had on the immediate moment that I saw her was she's like me, meaning that here I was, this young, adolescent person, and she had something that was childlike and innocent about her, uh, that I just saw under. I mean, she wasn't wearing makeup; she was dressed in this kind of tight-fitting, simple, very simple white dress. She had come to see my father about working with him, which she did. And of course, what happened, I don't think anybody anticipated that Marilyn would actually become a member of the family, and become another sibling who actually was impossible to compete with. Uh, I've often felt as though if I had been born in another family and met my father, that he would have, not that he would have liked it, he loved me. I know that he loved me. I have to think about it sometimes, but that he would have recognized who I was, which I guess I never thought that he really did. But Marilyn obviously was extremely charismatic, and I think that's partially because of the childlike part of her, which she always retained. And she had a desperate need to be loved, which I think actually led to her death. Uh, Anybody who wears their heart on their sleeve in life is going to have a very tough time. We live in a sick world with a lot of mean-spirited, jealous, power-hungry people. And in some ways, Marilyn took care of herself as well as she could. And many people hated her for some of her habits, but when you can be too vulnerable, which was something that could happen to her, she could be too vulnerable. You have to have a way of defending yourself, and you know, she had people, my mother included, who were between, who helped her to protect herself. And my mother was horribly criticized. Consider, if you watch the movie My Week with Marilyn, it's they just pick the conventional, the horrible lady in black, which fundamentally makes me angry, and it's like when people make movies about real people, don't they ever bother to actually find out who those people are or were? Or do they just go with the conventional idea that comes written by journalists and by people who rarely are thorough in what they do? And Marilyn was one of the few people I thought that actually saw me. I think she actually knew that I was suffering, as this child, adolescent, young, man moving towards, adulthood, hopefully. I mean, how many adults do you actually think are emotionally adults? And it's not dramatic or extraordinary to say that what she wanted more than anything was to be treated as a normal human being, if one can use the word for someone who is still a myth for many people. But she had something very simple, very earnest, a tremendous desire to be part of things with people. She had a kind of native intelligence, and I know that she tried to educate herself. But I always had this thing about her simplicity, and if I start to go into this, I could write a book, and I think that's all I'm going to say today. And you're going to have to say, please tell me more about her, and I think over time I will, but I just had to answer, at least open the dialogue with any of you that happen to be looking at this. Marilyn certainly is never given credit for who she really was, meaning that she was one of the earliest actors to form a production company. Burt Lancaster is one of the first that I'm aware of. And of course, Marilyn, who formed this production company, what everybody ends up doing is saying, well, it was my father, it's Milton Green, it's any man who was around her was fundamentally given credit as though she didn't have the intelligence or the capacity to actually do those things. And she did. And as childlike as she was nobody's fool. If she made any mistakes, it was only out of this overly vulnerable and needy human being. who, when she relaxed, could be funny and charming and a lovely person, to know, fundamentally. Though you had to be prepared to take care of her. She could give, but she was very needy. And actually, I think my sister suffered from Marilyn coming into the family because my sister was beautiful, was a star who had been in Picnic and was doing Anne Frank, The Diary of Anne Frank, on Broadway, where she created the role, and she was absolutely magnificent in it. And Marilyn shows up, and Susan's ignored. It's just shoved into the background. And this is something that is hard for me to. I can understand it, but it's hard to forgive my parents for their neglect. Uh, with me, I don't think it mattered. I was I'm the guy, and I was kind of rebellious. So whatever I got or didn't get, was partially not deserved, but it certainly wasn't. Susan needed their love, and so did I. But I was, angry about it, and at any rate, I think that's all I'm going to say today. Thanks very much for listening to my jumbling along. I'll try to do better as I keep doing these things.